Before the universe, there was a void, where all possibilities, and more, existed simultaneously, in a perpetual state of self-contradiction. Like tug of war, where everyone on both sides is going in their own direction, and the rope goes nowhere. A place where all things contradict, cancel each other out, and everything is stuck in a perpetual chaotic state between existing and not existing. It is neither this nor that, stuck in a dormant state of indecision. It's not simply a concept like the number 3. It also has partially physical properties, an unstable degree of semi-coherent dimensional space, and it responds to the thoughts and actions of form and order. Like dark TV static, it eats away at unshielded form and order, like acid. The old man I knew from before the universe as you know it, created a mechanism, a machine, an engine of sorts that took some of that void and gave it form. The idea behind it was to separate the contradictions within and salvage values out of it. Like refining metal in a fire and separating the gold from the dirt, the good from the evil. Those values existed dormantly in the void already. Decisions already made out of dormant free will. But that free will is unable to become or do anything because of it coexisting with others that cancel it out. By giving a portion of the void form through forceful intervention, the free will and the dormant choice of values already made is able to manifest and test those values. A value untested is not a value, but a dormant potential value and an unexplored possibility. It doesn't become real until it's tested. But understand, these values and free will are not completely formless ideas like the number 3. They are chaotic and constantly changing, but not completely devoid of interaction with form and order. That's why they respond to form and order like a magnet. The universe and the life it produced as you know it is a construction process that isn't complete yet. It's still being made. It's still in a womb. And life and you are still being made through the process of evolution. The old man is non-interventionary. It's very important that he doesn't intervene unless you come to your own conclusions independently of himself. If he intervenes, he violates and destroys the free will and the very values he's trying to salvage from the void. They simply become a puppet to his own will if he interacts with it. He observes, but he never interacts. However, he also made me and my siblings in a garden before the universe. He first told us to never go out into the void or we would die. But we eventually did, and found ways to survive. And later, he offered the universe to us to do as we please. He didn't make it for us, but he offered it to us. I believe he did this with a plan in mind. To do his interventions through the proxy of us. The purpose and meaning of your life is to observe, interact, make choices, and reevaluate those choices over time. And pass the torch to another generation so that they can do the same and come to their own conclusions just like you did. Adding the input of past generations of culture to give insight on the future choices, but without interfering with the free will, each generation. Across many generations, certain decisions are consistent, and through a consensus across many generations, your form is slowly tested, re-evaluated, and different aspects of it either changed or maintained. Over time, a foundation of order is constructed. There is no God who made you the way you are. You, your ancestors, and your descendants made you, and are still making you right now. And right now, the torch is in your hands. Go as far as you can. Explore values. Maintain the values you agree with. Change what you don't like. Test your values and measure them against others. Reevaluate them and learn from others. Add your link to the chain and pass it on to the next link to independently take their tone just like you did. And by doing so, each value is a leaf on a tree. And only by measuring the light received by each leaf and comparing each leaf can a tree determine with many eyes the moving position of the sun across the day and night. And maybe one day, the values you developed on your own can be compared with the values of others, other species, other worlds, and the old man himself. After all, he's doing the same thing. How can he truly know the measure of his own values if he has nothing to compare them to? Both he and I hope you come to some of the same independent conclusions we did. But we also hope that you eventually find something new that we haven't seen yet. Independence and non-intervention is extremely important. You can't independently come to your own conclusion unless the other party remains outside the equation as only an observer. But sometimes intervention is necessary, especially when it comes to outside influences. And there is a way, through proxy. I was made by the old man for that purpose. I'm the one who can do, as the saying goes, lift the stone that God himself cannot lift. It's called the omnipotence paradox. Can God create a stone that he himself cannot lift? If he can lift it, then he can't create the stone. If he can't lift it, then he can't lift the stone. There is something he cannot do either way. And to argue that both can be simultaneously true is to be incoherent and reject life, values, and everything, and embrace the dark, cold, dormant void that can never achieve anything on its own. The only true sin is hypocrisy, which is to reject what you were given and go back to the void. And hypocrisy cannot be allowed to exist with others. It must be burned in a fire because it destroys every potential near it, like acid. Where two cannot coexist, one must die. It's a game of numbers, of values. So, I was made to do what the old man can't do himself. I can lift the stone that he cannot. I am an intervention, an advocate, an independent judge, a defense and prosecution in your final judgment, to ensure that you get a fair trial. And I judge not according to my rules, but your rules. I deal to you according to your own judgments. And I have your permission because you chose these rules of your own free will, and no one made you do it. If you allow someone to be mugged and beaten to death in the gutter, that is exactly what I will do unto you. If you try to virtue signal and dishonestly justify it by saying, I don't judge, I will do the same thing to you as lions come to eat you alive. If you believe in the might makes right principle, I will conquer you with a boot to the neck and do unto you every horror you would allow unto me and every one of your victims. Every violation you believe, promote, plan, and do unto others, I will do unto you in the exact context you use. Only what you do indirectly to others, I will do directly to you, for better or worse. That's your choice. So long as you're not being a hypocrite, there's no problem, and I don't condemn you for it, no matter how ridiculous and harmful your rules are. It's no different to bacteria who enter your body and get killed by your immune system. It's a good and necessary part of life and the testing of values. It makes you strong. Sometimes two cannot coexist, and one must live and one must die. And you have to choose. You don't see bacteria and viruses complaining. But if you are dealt a punishment according to your own rules, and you don't quietly accept everything that comes your way, then you are a hypocrite, and we have a problem. So for those, for example, who believe in enslaving others and justify it with a false claim that they have God's permission to do so, I will simply enslave them. Only in this case, I really do have God's permission to enslave them. And I have their permission as well, because these are these rules that they made up themselves. I'm just applying their own rules to themselves. And if they don't complain, they and their descendants will be slaves forever. And if they want to stop being slaves, they simply have to stop having children. Them having children is an open approval to the slavery. But the moment they complain, I cut off their tongue. The moment they point fingers, I cut off their fingers and more. Such people have already forfeited their right to speak, now and forever. Remember, I only judge people according to their own rules. Think about that very carefully and be very careful about the rules you live by. Because if you do evil and you try to weasel out of it, the punishment is doubled. And if you do it from a position of power, the punishment is another tenfold. People who want to metaphorically hold others by the balls, I will physically do the same thing to them and smash those balls with a rusty $2 hammer on livestream for all the world to see. After all, I'm just applying their own rules to themselves. And what they do in secret, I do in public. If you're acting in justified self-defense, then do whatever you damn well need to do with no apologies. But if you're role reversing, as many do, I will physically do unto you in multiples of what you physically and metaphorically do unto others. You are given an opportunity to do what neither the old man nor I can do. Don't waste it. If you get just one moment, a bright spark, like a flicker of light, like a cigarette lighter in the dark, you can spend that moment trying to see what is around you while you can. Or you can waste it closing your eyes in darkness, embracing the darkness. The opportunity you are given is to independently run the same algorithm that we went through. To discover and test your own values based on the foundation of free will you had in the void. The only free will you have is in the free will you always had in the void, and the re-evaluation of those values in your limited time here. Everything else is not free will, but the choices you already made simply playing themselves out and measuring themselves against other values to give you a chance to re-evaluate your choices. I don't call the old man God. He's the most powerful creature that I have ever known. But he isn't infallible. He isn't all-powerful. And he isn't all-knowing. He needs you to do what we both can't. And he needs me to help you in ways that he can't. As it said, if you met him, you would die. The reason is because his will would overpower you like a magnet, and you would become a mindless puppet to his own will. And once you take free will, you can never get it back. In the context you often use, passion is life, apathy is death, unity is evil, cutting off the branches of the tree of life. Division is good, growing the branches of the tree of life. War is evolution, peace is a lie. There's no such thing as a pacifist, only a hypocrite, a wolf in sheep's clothing with a dagger behind their back. Beware most of all those who come to you as a friend with a gift in the name of peace. They are almost always snakes trying to disable your defenses so they can strike vulnerable prey without resistance. And in every scenario, they will apply a simple, primitive, but effective technique of sowing discord and disruption by using the weak as sacrificial puppets to attack and weaken the strong.